When I was just 8 years old, my parents walked out of my life without looking back. They didn't just leave the house. They abandoned me completely, as if I were nothing more than a burden they could toss aside. I can still remember standing on the front porch with my small backpack, waiting for them to return, but they never did. The only person who stepped forward that day was my grandmother, Elizabeth Walker, Grandma Lizzy, as everyone called her. She wrapped me in her arms, whispered that I was safe now, and from that moment on, she became the only parent I truly had. For the next 10 years, she gave me everything my parents refused to provide: love, patience, encouragement, and the unwavering belief that I mattered in this world. But then, on the day of her funeral, the unthinkable happened. My parents, Linda and Thomas, suddenly showed up. They hadn't spoken my name in more than a decade, but there they were, standing in front of the church as though they belonged. They didn't come to mourn. They came because Grandma Lizzy had left behind an estate worth $80 million. The same people who had thrown me away suddenly appeared with their hands out, demanding her fortune as if it was owed to them. I thought I had already endured the worst pain a son could feel, but nothing compared to sitting in that lawyer's office, hearing their voices dripping with entitlement. My father smirked as though victory was guaranteed. My mother whispered under her breath about how things were finally going to be set right. But when the lawyer, Mr. Collins, opened the envelope and began to read, the air shifted. Every eye turned toward me. My parents' confidence drained from their faces like color from a wound. They realized, too late, that this story wasn't going to end the way they imagined. When I was 8, I couldn't understand why they left. I wandered through the silent house calling their names, believing they were hiding, playing some cruel game. But no one answered. I sat on those front steps until nightfall, clutching the straps of my backpack, hoping headlights would appear in the driveway. None ever did. It was Lizzy who found me. She pulled up in her old blue station wagon, her face lined with fury when she realized what had happened. She knelt in front of me, placed her steady hands on my shoulders, and said, "You're coming home with me, Daniel. I promise, you will never be left alone again." She kept that promise every single day. Lizzy wasn't wealthy in the ways most people measure wealth. She lived in a modest house with creaking floors and a kitchen that always smelled of cinnamon and coffee. What she lacked in riches, she made up for in love and strength. She raised me as her own son. She woke me for school every morning with pancakes waiting on the table. She sat in the front row at every play, clapped the loudest at every recital, and proudly taped my report cards to the refrigerator like trophies. When the nights felt too heavy, and I lay awake wondering why my parents had left, she would sit beside my bed and tell me stories of resilience. She taught me that hardship wasn't meant to break us. It was meant to shape us into people who could withstand storms. Her words carried me through childhood. She made sure I never felt like I had less than other kids. I may not have had the latest toys or brand new clothes, but I had something far greater: security, and someone who believed in me with all her heart. She reminded me constantly, "Your past doesn't define you, Daniel. Your choices do." By the time I was a teenager, I had stopped waiting for my parents to return. Their absence became a shadow instead of a wound. What defined me was Lizzy's love, her encouragement, and her unwavering strength. The day of her funeral, though, was the hardest day of my life. The church was filled with people who spoke of her kindness, her generosity, and the countless lives she had touched. I felt broken, like the boy on that porch again, waiting for parents who would never return. But then I saw them, my parents. Thomas in his sharp black suit, jaw clenched, his hair grayer, but his eyes just as cold. Linda in an expensive dress, her lips painted red, her expression unreadable. For a moment I thought they were ghosts, but no, they were real, and they were here for one reason: the inheritance. Later that afternoon, we gathered at Mr. Collins's office for the reading of the will. My parents sat stiffly across from me, full of smug confidence. My father leaned back, arms crossed, while my mother tapped her manicured nails impatiently against the chair. Mr. Collins opened the folder, and the room went silent. My parents leaned forward, certain they were about to claim the fortune. But then his voice cut through the air. "To my beloved grandson, Daniel Walker, you have been the greatest joy of my life. Every sacrifice I made for you. For that reason, I leave my entire estate, valued at $80 million, solely and unconditionally to you." The room froze. My father's smirk vanished. My mother's jaw fell open. Their faces went pale as Mr. Collins continued. "To my son Thomas and his wife Linda, who chose to abandon Daniel when he needed you most, I leave $1 each. This is not an oversight nor cruelty. It is a reminder that true wealth is not measured in money, but in the love and responsibility you cast aside." The silence was deafening. My father's face turned crimson. He slammed his fist on the table, shouting that it was a joke, that she had no right to do this. My mother's composure cracked. her voice shrill as she cried that after all they gave her, this was how she repaid them. I stood. My voice trembled, but it was steady enough. She chose me because I was there, because I loved her, because I stayed when you walked away. You abandoned us both, and now you want to rewrite history for money. But it's too late. For the first time, my parents looked at me not as a child, but as a man who refused to bow. When the meeting ended, they stormed out, angry, bitter, and defeated. For years, I had carried the weight of their abandonment, wondering if I was to blame. But now I understood the truth. Their absence had never been about me. It had always been about them, their selfishness, their greed, their inability to love anyone more than themselves. Mr. Collins placed a hand on my shoulder and said softly, "Your grandmother believed in you, Daniel. She wanted to give you not only security, but the freedom to live life on your own terms. Be proud of that." Walking out of that office, I felt grief, yes, but also clarity. Lizzy had left me with more than money. She left me with proof that love is stronger than betrayal, and that integrity is worth far more than wealth. In the weeks that followed, I chose to honor her in the way she would have wanted. I established a scholarship in her name for children who had been abandoned, just like me. I supported the shelters and food banks she had quietly helped throughout her life. Every choice I made carried her spirit forward. My parents tried reaching out, letters, phone calls, threats, and pleas. But the boy who once sat on the porch waiting for them was gone. In his place stood a man who finally knew the difference between family and strangers. Neighbors came with stories I had never heard. How Lizzy had paid for someone's medicine when they couldn't afford it. How she had tutored children after school. How she had volunteered quietly at the church. Her impact had rippled far beyond me, and now it was my turn to carry that ripple forward. One night, I sat on the porch where it had all begun. I looked up at the stars and whispered, "Thank you, Lizzy. Thank you for staying. Thank you for showing me what love truly means. And thank you for protecting me, even now." Her final act wasn't about punishing those who abandoned me. It was about protecting the one person who stayed. She gave me the strength to stand tall, the wisdom to value love over greed, and the courage to build a future that honors her name. This isn't just a story about inheritance. It's a story about love, resilience, and the truth that family isn't defined by blood. It's defined by who stays when the world walks away. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like this video so it can reach others who may need it. Share it with someone who's struggling, and subscribe for more powerful true stories that will inspire, challenge, and remind you that no matter how dark life gets, there's always light to be found. Thank you for listening.